Hey everyone, we are going to go through making type in Illustrator. So there's two ways to make type, and it depends on what you want to do, and I'm going to show you both ways, and you're going to make those decisions as you go through this. So the type tool we've already used just briefly. So it's the T. You can either click on it or you can press T on your keyboard. That's the keyboard shortcut. So what we've done so far is we've clicked and we've dragged, and we've created what's called area type. This works really well for large bodies of words, paragraphs, things like that. So what I want you to do is go ahead and create a box, this bounding box of where your type's going to be, and then type in a couple paragraphs. Or you can type in some sentences, or you can, just kind of make up and just type, but make sure you have some punctuation and some shorter and longer letters in there. All right, so once you get some words and whatnot in here, then, so what we can do with it is if we go to our selection tool, we can see that bounding box come up. And what's cool about this is we can, it's going to fit to our area that it's in. So we can either expand the area, and it's going to fit to that, or it's going to condense that area. Then the type stays the same size, which is going to kind of fill the space that it's in. One thing you might notice once you make this smaller is that you're going to see a little bit of a red plus if you have more text than you have area. Okay, so that's going to tell you not all of your text is in there, so you're going to need to expand this in order to see it all. So that's one way that you can make it. Another way is to just click down once. So I'm going to press the T for type. And this is really great if you're doing short bits. So headers that are going to be not as long, so not body paragraphs. So this would include like headlines or titles or things like that. So if you click down once, go ahead and type something in. And then what we're going to do is go back to our selection tool, and you can see that bounding box comes up here. What's different about this point type, is what we call it, point type versus area type. What's different about this is when we go to it, the point type, and we drag on the bounding box, this time rather than just making the box bigger, it's going to make the actual type, your font, bigger. Okay, if you want to keep the proportions constrained so that it doesn't stretch it, you're going to hold shift. So I'm going to undo that, Control Z. I'm going to hold shift, then I'm going to drag it out, and you can see it's just making it bigger without distorting it. So this is a really slick way to be able to change size and to get it to fit in a specific area. Just like we did with our line segments and things like that, you can duplicate it. So if I do an Alt and drag, I can have a second one. If you go to the corner, you can rotate it. Okay, so you can have it change positions. Over on the left side is the rotate tool. If you choose to use that, then it's going to create the left part as a pivot point. So it's a different way to rotate it. It does a similar thing, but rather than doing like a teeter-totter, it has a pivot point that it switches at. All right, so those are the two different types of way that you can make type. So just like our objects are our shapes, we can change the color as well. So if we go to color panel over here, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to use the color, you can use color swatches. We can also change stroke, weight, different things like that. So I just want to make sure that whatever I have is selected. And right now it has no stroke. So if I do X, I could go to my color panel and I could choose a color, and it's going to create an outline there. Be careful with choosing an outline color. It can be really hard to read it if you have too much of an outline color. So I'm going to do no outline. If I switch these again, then I can choose whatever color I would like for my font to be. Just make sure it's selected. All right, then you have options for changing the font. We're going to go to Window and then Character. So Window Type and then Character. And this is the automatic default. Then you can choose, if you click on one, and then you can choose which one you would like. So all of the fonts are going to have just a little bit of a different look to them. We're going to look at size. So you can change the size of it here, or you can pull on the edge. We've got a couple different options. There's leading, tracking, and kerning. So leading is the vertical space a line of type takes up. Okay, so we're thinking about vertical up and down. So this is the default. I can make it, and we're going to see this more when we're actually in the paragraph. So I want you to select So go to the direct selection. I want you to select 2 lines of type, and then we can see when we do the leading that it's going to space out. So you can select an entire paragraph, or you can just select a couple lines and have them closer or farther apart. Next, we're going to look at kerning, and kerning is the horizontal space between 2 letters specifically. So this works really well for like headlines. We don't use it a ton in like body, like paragraphs, but in headlines or larger type, it works really well. So if I look at the I and the G here, they're pretty close together, or the I and the T, just the way the font moves. So if I just click down once and I go to this, I can either do the arrows up and down, or I can choose some of the number values here. So if I do -100, you can see how much closer together that brings that. If I do the opposite, you can see it spreads it way out. Okay, so that's good for specifically 2 letters. Tracking is very similar, but it's going to be between all the letters, so whatever you select. So if I go through here and I select all of this headline, I can go to the tracking and I can either move it all together or all apart. So that way it's going to space it evenly based on how your text is set. You also have the option to change the paragraph. So if you click on the next tab over, paragraph is going to be how like an area of text is going to look. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going to go to paragraph, and I can do my justification. So right now, this is left justification. I can do middle, I can do right align, or I can even this out. You'll just want to be careful if you choose the justify with the left where it spreads it out like this. You want to avoid big gaps of text. So we don't use this too often. I would stick with either left align or right align if you're doing areas of text, depending on what it is. Those are the basics of working with the type tool, and the next tutorial will go through doing even more with type in specific areas, changing the shape and changing actual letters of the type.